Hey folks, we're back again. This episode we're going to be putting the cylinders on the engine. A little bit out of sequence of what I normally do, but we're going to put the cylinders on. I'm waiting on some hardware for some of the idler gears and such. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the 4 cylinders on. That's going to be probably the crux of this episode. Get those on. We've double checked the torque on the connecting rods and all that one more time. The case has all been torqued up. So now we're going to loosen it one by one and we're going to install cylinders. Should be fun. Hang on. Okay, so here we go. We're starting on cylinder number 1. All the cylinder installations are going to be pretty much the same. And that would make sense because all the cylinders are the same. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting in the O-ring that goes at the base of the cylinder. It fills a little machine chamfer on the crankcase cylinder interface area. The cylinders we're using are Millennium cylinders. So kind of got the cylinder ready to go. And now I'm taking the main bearing through bolt nuts off on this position. I'm only doing one at a time. And then when I put a cylinder on, I will tighten them back up to about 80% torque, and then I'll come back later. In fact, I'll come back later after the video and do all the detail torque. And then I've got a helper that'll come around and help make sure I get both sides of it, because sometimes you need someone on both sides of the engine, because on some of the through bolts they attach 2 cylinders. So that's what we're doing here. The hardware I'm using is that this is just assembly hardware. This is the stuff I'm taking off, and that I'll actually put in a little bucket that goes under the workbench, and that's just assembly hardware to hold torque. As you can see, I've got some big washers there on some of the other cylinders. This particular position here in the very back on the Lycoming 4-cylinder, the rear left, the 2.4 side, excuse me, you actually need to have some special washers that are cut so that you don't dig into the side casting. So what I'm doing here is just taking off those bolts, or pardon me, nuts, and getting ready to get a cylinder going. It's I think the day I was doing this, it was about 95 in the shop, something like that. It was pretty hot, so you're going to see me kind of sweating a little bit. The total run time of this, and I think I say it at the end, total run time is about 45 minutes. Now that's an engine sitting on a stand in a shop with everything ready to go. Now if you are expecting to have a mechanic swap cylinders on an aircraft engine installed in an airplane, that's not quite a real deal. What I'm doing here is I'm putting oil, again my assembly lube mix, that's in the Lycoming service bulletin. I'm putting that, making sure that all the threads have that. I've got the cylinder ready, pretty much ready to go. Now we're kind of lucky on these cylinders. The folks we bought them from, we purchased these from, we purchased them from Sal Cylinders, and Sal and Jonathan get us all set up on these. Actually, they make it easy for us. The rings are already gapped. They're gapped to the cylinder, gapped to the piston. All the dimensions are taken, so they've got them set up so that we just have to sniggle the piston out a little bit, get it scooched out there a little bit, far enough to get the, and I'm kind of trying to, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to pull it out, but not pull it out all the way. So it's kind of tough to pull it out about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm kind of walking it out, just slowly going. And then you'll see me kind of thump on it with my palm of my hand, or there. No rubber mallets, no metal hammers for sure. So kind of just trying to work it out. And what I'm trying to do is just get it out far enough so that pin can slide out. There we go. Now, the other thing you'll notice on this pin is it has the aluminum plugs pressed into it. This is a Superior, I think it's the SL13444, I think. I could be wrong. But these are kind of nice. These eliminate the airworthiness directive for the pin plugs. They get rid of all the different configuration of pins and pins and plugs and all that. So what I've got to do is I've got it out where you can kind of, it's out where you can get to it. I'm making sure everything's good, looking at the piston markings and all that, kind of getting everything set. So I figure I got it nailed. This thing is going to go on like a dream because I'm the freaking expert. Now, if you notice, as I'm putting this thing on there, if you notice where the push rod tubes are on the top of the crankcase, and if you'll notice on this piston, I've got it completely ass backwards, which anybody that's worked on a Lycoming or Continental has done. I don't care. There's folks that might say they've never done it. Well, then they've never done an engine. So it's kind of a forest from the trees. So now I realize, oh, you dumbass, flip it around. It'll be easier to hook up the valves. And it's a very, I shouldn't say tight fit, but an extremely high precision fit of the piston pin to the connecting rod. So you've got to get it just at the right angle and all of that. So that's what I'm kind of doing as I'm getting it there. I'm doing this one person, which you can do, no problem. If you end up if you end up having pistons with, so now I'm kind of saying, okay, I'm getting hot and bothered, I'm getting hacked off. So we're gonna get it about where it needs to be. We're gonna put the piston pin on the top, a little bit more lube. And again, every time I touch it, if I try to put something together and it doesn't happen right, first off, I'm going to just lube it up, make sure that we didn't wipe the lube off in the prior operation. Okay, I think I got it this time. We'll see how it goes. Okay, piston pin is up on the top, and we're going to come in here, get it hiked up a little higher, and then we'll get our pin kind of located, and then just kind of slowly, once it makes that piston pin bushing, again, we're not trying to force anything, boom, slides right in. Now I've got to walk that, just as I walk that piston out, walking the piston back in the barrel and using my big old jelly belly to kind of help push it along. I'm trying not to rotate the engine. I prefer not to rotate the engine. So I'm just trying to get it there, and then get the piston, get it lined up, boom, it's on. So it is actually pretty close tolerance, hole pattern, all that. So making sure that everything's good, making sure our cylinder base gasket is in good shape, and then we're putting the attaching hardware on. Now, on this exercise for this video, all I'm going to be putting on are the through bolt nuts, and those are the nuts that those are the big ones on the Lycoming. For all intents and purposes, those are the big ones, and they essentially about 2/3 of them tighten up the your main bearings. So we're putting those on and getting those spun on and getting those secured, and we'll put about 80% torque on those to make sure that everything is snug and tight. Now, for you folks who were watching our last video, putting the crankcase together, you'll notice that well, we have a lot of stuff done. First off, the engine's up on the engine stand. We had a lot of folks saying, hey, when's it going to be on the engine stand? When's it going to be on the engine stand? Okay, it's on the engine stand. That's the way I do it. I assemble the crankcase, the core engine on the workbench, kind of on the half shell, so to speak. For me, it's easier to do. That's just the way I do it. Then we assembled it. What you saw last time was I basically tightened the through bolts, and that was the end of the video. What you can see here now is all of the edge bolts, the 1/4 inch bolts, the engine mount, or pardon me, the engine hoist bracket and all of that is installed. The propeller seal is installed. Actually, one of the reasons why we put the propeller seal in when it is, before we set it up on the stand, is so that all the oil that's inside the engine that we slobbered all over everything is not dribbling out the bottom. So that's kind of what we do there. That's one of the big reasons there. But it's on an engine stand, and it'll stay on the engine stand until we can finish the engine out, and then we'll have to pull it off of that and put it on the shipping skid. So that's our for phase 2. We'll call phase 2 of the engine: cylinder installation, accessory case, sump, any of the push rod tubes, the valve or the push rods, valve train, rocker covers. What else are we going to be putting in there? Oil drain back tubes, intake tubes, all that stuff it's actually quite nice and easy to put or assemble with the engine on the stand. Yes, the stand is a great thing, and the stands can take a 4-cylinder, they can take a 6-cylinder, they can even take an 8-cylinder engine. So they're a great thing, but I don't do it for everything. I just do it for so I just use the stand for the once the crankcase is together. Even when the crankshaft is on the in inspection and all that, we use that. We do all that on the workbench, and it only goes on the stand once it's inside the crankcase set. So that's just the way I do it. There's a lot of folks that do it different. It's not wrong. It's just different. So that's my thing. That's just the way I do it. And again, I'm doing real time on cylinder number 1. What I'll do is on the following cylinder, I'll speed it up. But do that, and then I've got so much oil on everything. Everything's kind of slippery. So then you'll see me wiping the stuff off with paper towels, and then putting it on, getting things snugged up. Now you can see here, this is kind of handy. This is nice instead of using the cylinder wrench and fumbling with that, which is kind of it's not the best wrench all the time, but you know, if you have to go around a cylinder, it's what you need to use. But when you don't have those other cylinders around there, an open-end wrench actually works out quite well, quite nice. So it's a pretty good deal. So that's what we're doing there. We're just tightening up, I think, the last nut, probably get this thing snugged, and then we'll move on to the next one. You can see the cylinder below there, 2 of the hold down studs, the big ones, which are the corner studs. 2 of those are through bolts, so those are the ones that have the nuts and washers. And then the lower bolts, or pardon me, lower nuts, which are below that cylinder, those are actually through bolts for the number 1 cylinder, the very forward cylinder. Those are through bolts that hold the front of that cylinder on. So it's kind of an interesting deal there. So, and it's because it's an opposed engine, the cylinders have to be staggered. So you'll have some shared fasteners, some not so much. And here I am again, torquing things down, getting things where they need to be. So that's kind of what's going on there. And we're just doing kind of a crisscross pattern. We will come back after we get all the cylinders on, kind of after the mess is done. We'll put the smaller studs on, smaller nuts on the studs, and get those going. So that's kind of what's going on here, just getting those tightened up, making sure everything's good. So like I said, just crisscross. And I use a beam type torque wrench because I like a beam type torque wrench. It works out real well for me. The other thing I like to do is I like to hang on to it for about a 5-second torque or so, and you can either use a torque meter or even the electronic ones, but I like to maintain that torque for about 5 seconds at least, and make sure that everything's snug and tight. With a click type, you can't really do that. Personally, I would not recommend using a click type for holding cylinders down. I definitely like the beam type or the meter type, where you can maintain a torque and get about a 5-second hold, because you will see a little bit of creep on it when you're doing that. Kind of everything's all slobbered up. So now we've got that rear main all tightened up again, and we're gonna bring it around. I gotta spin things around yep, it's hot out. Spin things around, get it ready for you. And I do have to apologize, because sometimes I stand on the front of stuff and I'm kind of fat, so I sometimes block stuff out, but hopefully won't do too much of that. So now here we've got to take off the next through bolts, and again, they don't match up with the other cylinder quite so much. They do go through, and those 2 through studs are common with the rear or upper, if you want it in this position, through studs of the other cylinder on the other side, which will be that'll eventually be our third one we're putting on. So again, this is all build-up hardware. This is grade 8 fine thread stuff and whatnot, and we keep that away from the engine. As soon as it comes off, boom, it goes to our little deal there. And then with the threads, everything gets lubricated. On this one, I'm using the mix which I believe is an oil SDP mix, I believe is what I used on this one, per the service instruction for recommended lubricants and also the overhaul manual. So real important. Real important to get into those service instructions and that kind of stuff. Very important to do that. So here's cylinder, the next coming up. Now this is something that to me is real important, is that these bags are held on, the guys over there at the cylinder shop, they hold them on with a tire wrap. Anytime I cut a tire wrap, it goes in the trash can. I've got to walk it, personally, I walk it over to the trash can and make sure it is not near the engine. So you'll see me do that pretty much every time. So I just am absolutely totally paranoid about tire wraps, FOD, etc. So it's a thing. So yep, same kind of program here. Again, just kind of eyeballing it, figuring out what's going on, then oil it up. Now this is going to be kind of repetitive, but a lot of you folks had wanted to kind of see real time and all that. This is close to real time. I did zoom some stuff on doing nuts and bolts. So as we're trucking along, that's another thing is the cylinders, when they do come, they have plastic preservation plugs in the spark plug holes. Now, if you try to pull that piston out, that's all slobbered up with oil. It's full of oil in there and just slobbered up, really douched down heavy with oil. And the rings and all that, and you try to pull that piston out with those plastic plugs in there and the valves closed, it's going to be a hell of a time doing that. So you got to remember to pull that plug out. Now in this one here, I pulled you can see the green plug there under my hand. I pulled the other one out on the other side. And then what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to bring it out, walk it out real slow. I don't want to pop it out where I've got to get the ring compressors. I prefer not. I've got the ring compressors there just off camera, so I would prefer not to do that. And I'm just kind of bumping it back and forth with my hand, and you can see the pin is in there. And again, our cylinder shop helps us out. They put the pin in there with the piston all preloaded, so it's kind of a handle, a real nice handle to pull the piston out of the barrel. So that's kind of a nice little deal. So it works out real well. Another thing you'll notice is on the base of the barrel where the hold down bolts are, you'll see that the paint is not painted black. The reason is you don't want a lot of paint under nuts when you're trying to torque them. So the cylinder manufacturer, in this case Superior, they'll just have a very light coat of primer just for corrosion. I mean, it's just almost a couple atoms thick, and then they'll mask it and paint the black on the cylinders. Black is pretty much your what you can use for. I mean, that's your final paint on the engine, so no big deal. Yeah, making sure it's in the hole, butter it up, lots of oil. Just get everything all slobbered up. Oop. Now we spin around. Here we go. On we go. Now, if you don't, I am no muscle man, that's for sure, but it does get kind of heavy. If you get kind of tired, horsing the deal around, the cylinder around, take a break. Take a break, get everything set up, get it where you want to, back in position. Lift my piston pin up, back on the rod, and I'm feeling around with my fingers there for the head of the connecting rod. Boop. And there it goes down in. And then what I've done is I've positioned that throw of the crankshaft to be at its highest or nearest to the basically at a top compression position, so that when I bring it in, I can bring it in nice and slow. I've got plenty of room. Or then I can, once I get it within a 1/4 inch of the bolts, I can just rotate it around just a hair and then get those bolts, or pardon me, these studs lined up with the holes on the cylinder. And it, you think, well, it fits on there pretty easy. Well, it kind of does. There you go. Use my jelly belly to push things around. Works out pretty well. Boom. Once it's hanging on there, it's not gonna fall off. It's not a big deal. But what you might do is have if you're concerned, have one nut in your pocket, spin it on a couple threads. But really, it isn't a problem. Once you get that much engagement of the piston pin, the nuts, or the cylinder on the studs, it's not going to fall off. It's pretty well on there. So then we have the Superman Go Fast $6 million man, fast forward. And this is, as I said, it's kind of redundant. But and everything's slimy, so I use the paper towel to kind of dry the hardware off before so I don't waste a lot of time trying to spin it around. So it works out pretty well. Boom. And then again, torque. So now cylinder wrenches, this is something that a lot of folks don't realize. There are different kinds of cylinder wrenches. If you're using cylinder wrenches for opposed engines, typically all those cylinder wrenches, the wrenches I have, they used to be made by Mac. I think ATS makes them now. They pretty much fit Lycomings, Continentals, and even Franklin opposed engines, no problem. However, if you're trying to do a radial, they are either, the heads are going to be bigger, the barrels will be taller, so you'll end up with unique wrenches for those cylinders. So nuts and hardware goes in the bucket. So as a result, you're going to, for those engines, if you're working on a W670 for a Stearman, you're going to need to get the proper wrenches for that engine, or a 985 or an 1830. You're going to have to get unique wrenches for those engines if you're going to be doing that kind of stuff full time. So just be advised, there are some limitations of some of the tools we use. Most of what I'm doing is reciprocating engine, small opposed engines and all that. So my wrench set works fine. However, we were working on a Stearman engine here just the other day, and we had to pull out the special wrenches just for that engine. So just be advised, a lot of your tools work most of the time, but there are some unique things you're going to have to get some special tools. Cylinder number 3. So again, we're just clicking along. You can see all the oil that's in the bottom of that bag there. So that's a nice thing, is this thing is slobbered up really well with a lot of lubricating or preservative oil. So works out real good. Tire wrap over in the trash can, walk it over. So do that. Then these bags, these are like super heavy duty bags. I love these bags. In fact, I use them for storing tools and some other stuff. I've got a zillion of them, but as soon as I get it off the cylinder, then I just get it out of my way. Work on that later. But yeah, it's all slimy and all that, so I'll put it over in the dustbin there for later. Figure that out. Take the plug out. Take that plastic plug out so I can get the piston out. And then just keep noodling away at it. Rubber O-ring is in the little bin there, that little bucket, soaking in oil. Set it up. Looking at the piston, make sure everything's same. And then I want to get that piston kind of where I can get to it. So, as I said, it's sometimes it's frustrating getting it out. Sometimes it works out pretty well. My biggest thing there is I'm trying not to take it all the way out, so I'm kind of under pulling it, so to speak. I just want to make sure I don't pull it out and then end up having the lower oil control ring where I've got to get a ring compressor and it just takes more time. I'd rather spend a few moments just kind of soft bumping it out to get that piston pin accessible and all that. So just take your time on this stuff. There's no rush. These are extremely highly machined parts. There should be no forcing of anything, so take your time. Got the pin exposed. Now what I'm doing is I'm looking at the engine saying, okay, where does this thing go? And my piston pin has to come out of the bottom. So I'll get the O-ring on. And these O-rings are, they don't like to be stretched a lot, so try not to stretch them any more than you have to. So be advised on that you really don't want to stretch those. And then you do want to lubricate where they do go, that chamfer. Make sure that's all slobbery. And get everything else set. So get everything set there. Slowly pick it up. And there we go. Bring it through. Boom. Comes right through. Very nice. And then we just kind of walk it on. You can see the cylinder's a little bit twisted. Piston really doesn't care. And then we're just going to slowly bring it in. Now, what happens is as the engine gets heavier, the more cylinders you put on it. When I bump that cylinder to get it going, it doesn't shake the tree quite so much, and it'll actually move the cylinder a bit more. Now I'm putting the oil on the studs. Should have done that before, but just trying to get things done. And then just slowly bumping it through, bumping it on, get it up where it needs to be. Boom, and it's home. So we'll go throw a nut on there. Again, I have all of the as you saw in the very beginning, I took that bag of cylinder hold down nuts and just dumped it in my little deal of oil. So it's and you can see it's you end up with a lot of oil on it. If you I wouldn't wear a nice shirt, if you know what I mean. So you're gonna get slobbery, you're gonna get sweaty. That's engine work. That's just the way it is. Again, on this one here, I used a paper towel to kind of try to tighten that or get the oil off that nut, so we got some purchase on it. So just kind of get those slowly put on, and then get those all attached. So more of the same. And then, I've got the access to use an open-end wrench, so I do. It works out pretty well. And then get them all down. And most of these, I should say, all of these nuts should be able to go down by hand. If you've got to use a wrench to get those nuts on, then you've missed something. That's something you want to inspect before you even get ready to put the cylinders on, or even at the case level, is to inspect all the studs, make sure that they're good, there's no burrs on them, make sure everything's clean. On this particular engine, for all the through bolts, we bought a complete set of through bolts, so these are all brand new parts. And that's why, again, I don't use the actual cylinder hardware. I don't want to put any wear on that attachment hardware while it's if it's just for dry assembly type stuff. So that's why we're using those kinds of hardware items. So now we bring it around, boop, 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 zoom, and spin it around one more time. So it's coming out, looking okay, looking very, very aircrafty at this point. So now, and this is the other thing too, is no one's an expert. Everyone's an expert, but you're going to be working on these a lot. Pace yourself, get in a routine and all that. Now this engine here, we had to move shop, so I was kind of a little bit out of sequence on some stuff. But once you start putting doing your assembly items and all that, you kind of get in a groove, and it works out pretty well. So again, just kind of keep kind of just a tempo. Don't go any faster. If you feel that you're rushed or that you are kind of nervous about doing something, just slow down and stop. This is important stuff. There's no reason to get all jacked up on this stuff. I mean, you're assembling an engine. Think about it. You're assembling an engine. It's going to take, right here, putting these cylinders on, it takes about 45 minutes. This engine, there's a very good chance this engine could be assembled for, it could be assembled for over 20 years, easily 20 years. So there's no reason to go crazy with rushing and that kind of stuff. So just take your time. The assembly is the minuscule part of the engine's life, so take your time and do it right. Okay, so here we have the 4th cylinder, last cylinder. Kind of glad at this point, as hot as it is, it's not a 6-cylinder. Tie wrap, walk it over the trash can. Boom. That's me. I've just tried to train myself through the years. I try to be a real nerd when it comes to FOD and that kind of stuff. I don't want to see any of that kind of stuff nearby. Our little workbench there, it's kind of at a screen. That's basically only has on it what I need to do the job. So it's not cluttered with tools and all that. I do have the workbench over there to the right. It's got a bunch of stuff on it, but that is not my number one working spot. I'm working off this table in front of me, and it has what I need only to do the cylinder work. So it's got the cylinder wrenches. It's got the wrench to take the green plugs out. It's got the lube, and it's got the gaskets and all that laying out that I might need, hardware, that kind of stuff. So that's the only thing that we've got sitting out on that table. Just try to keep your workspace organized, clean. I've got over in the workbench, you see I've got the maintenance manual and torque tables, all of that opened up, laid out, so it's all set to go. So we're doing pretty good shape there. Getting everything set up. Like I said, just wallop. Kind of getting these out, and it's moving a couple millimeters at a time. Whoop, there we go. Getting everything lubed up. And looking at the engine, making sure I have the right configuration as far as which way is up. So I need to put the pin is going to have to come in from the bottom, and set that up, get it all ready to go. O-ring goes on, last of the O-rings. That's another thing, is before you get going on your assembly, lay out any kind of gaskets, O-rings, or whatever. Make sure you have everything, just in case you have been shorted or you've got a bad gasket or something like that. So when I started, before the cameras were rolling, I laid everything out, got all the gaskets sitting out so that I know where they are and all that stuff, and made sure that everything was going to be in good order. Get the piston pin ready to go in. This thing's slimy, it wants to fall out, so you've got to be careful and not let it fall out. That'd be bad. Oh look, I'm in the way again. Hard to believe. Zig, zig, zig. Get that one on. I think I realized I'm in the way. That's kind of tough doing engine assembly. Oh, there we go. Bump it with her belly. It is kind of a pain doing video. Actually, probably any of these. So, a lot of these YouTubers and all that, it's work doing the video at the same time as you are actually doing the work. And that's why I'm doing the voiceover. I think it works better. I can talk a little bit more. I can think about other things. There we go. We're on the base studs. Zoom. Looking good. 4 nuts. And if you notice, my little tub there is empty. So that's a good thing. No O-rings there. No hold down nuts. So that's a good thing. And it's still hot. Spin the nuts on, get them started. Just take your time, no rush. Things looking pretty good, I gotta say. I had questions about this color blue when we were talking with the owner, but the more I assemble this engine, the more I kind of really liked it. I thought it was going to be kind of like that old Lycoming powder blue, but this is kind of a very nice, kind of a royal blue. It's looks pretty crisp, and with the new cylinders going against them, it's going to be a good looking engine. So this thing is, like I said, putting the nuts on, getting those tightened up, slow going, and one more. These are, as I said, these are Superior Millennium cylinders. Now on these cylinders, we had to order ahead. In today's world, lead time is a thing. So if you plan on doing an engine, get your cylinders sorted out as soon as you can. Once you figure out where you're going, if you're going overhaul or new. On this engine, we looked at the different opportunities out there, and we went with the Superior Millennium PMA parts. It seemed like the best way to go, best availability, best value, best product, very good rep. So we're very pleased with these. We've been using these quite often. So there's nothing wrong with OEM cylinders. For this customer, it was the best value proposition for them. So if you want to use OEM, that's great. If you want to use other brands, that's great. But for this particular build, this was the best cost benefit and whatnot for this particular one. Okay, folks, that's about it for this episode. I'm going to put on the small 3/8 nuts. We put on all the 1/2-inch nuts, have them up at about a 75% torque, so the cylinders aren't going anywhere. These are brand new Superior Millennium cylinders. Our cylinder folks go and they're all built up as far as the ring gap and all that, so they're ready for it. So all we have to do, very nice on these pistons, there's no lower ring, so we can pull it out just enough, slide that pin in. You can see how easy it was. This is lapse time, maybe, I don't know, 45-50 minutes, something like that. So it can be done by one person. It's it's not too terribly bad. If you do have to use a ring compressor doing your initial build-up, it's going to take a little bit longer, and it'd be best to get somebody to help you on that, especially on the small bore continentals and that kind of stuff. But that's it for putting cylinders on right now. So it's looking more engine-y. We will be putting on the accessory cover, the rear accessory case and sump next time. Probably stuffing some push rod tubes and all that. What I'm going to do right now is just repetitive stuff. I'm going to put on all the little nuts and then take it to final torque. So that's no surprises there. That's what's going on here. Have a fabulous time. Get out there, go fly, get working on stuff. We'll catch you guys later. Hanger Rats out.